Hi and welcome to this DCP Web Blender 2.8 particles tutorial. So in today's tutorial we'll be creating a particle simulation similar to this. So we've got volumetric lighting in the background and we've got an object that's scattering that lighting, and then we've got two planes here on each side, and each one will emit a different set of particles. We've got white and purple, or it's pinky colour, blue and yellow, and then we're able to control the particles separately from each side. So as we scrub through this timeline, you'll see that the particles will move in their own direction. I've kept them quite similar in this example, but I'm going to show you how we can actually change the trajectory, change the speed for these sides of each particle. And you could have some text, sort of like a logo or something in the background here, and the particles could flow over the top, something like this. So I'll show you how to create this in Blender. So let's go ahead and minimize this Blender file, and we'll start a new Blender file. Okay, so like usual, we'll click on General, we'll delete the cube, so click it and hit the delete key, click on the light source and hit the delete key to delete that as well. We'll go to File, Save As, like usual, and on my desktop, we'll go into this folder, and we'll call this Blender going to call it Blender Particles-01. We'll save this, and the first thing we'll do is just pan around to the side here, and we want to add two planes. So let's add one plane first, so Shift A, and we're going to insert a plane here. So we've got a plane, and we'll go to the particle system here, and we'll click New, and then we'll see particles will drop out the bottom here. So that's what we want, but we want to rotate it so the particles are going from left side to the right side. So we're going to rotate this object. So let's click on the object data, and we want to rotate on the y-axis. So we want to rotate it around this way, which should be -90, right? -90. Now the particles should, in theory, drop out to the right side. So let's just check that and make sure it's right. Well, it's dropping out to the left side. So we'll set this to 90 degrees, not -90. We'll set it to 90 here. So we've got particles dropping out in this direction. We want to create another one. So let's press Shift A and insert another plane object in the same location, and this time we'll set the y-axis to -90, and we'll go to the particle system and create a new particle system for that one. And as we scrub through now, we've got particles going in both directions from these planes. So what we want to do now is just sort out our camera. So let's press Control Alt. So I'm looking at it from this sort of perspective, from the front view here. We'll press Control Alt 0. That will bring our camera into that view. And let's click on this particle system here, and let's use the move tool, and let's just see which one that is. So let's just drag it across. This is the one that's going to this direction, right? So we just want to drag it so that it's just outside of the camera view here, and we'll click on this one and drag it to the other side here, like this. So they're just sitting outside of the camera view. And then let's just sort out this camera. Let's just line it up quickly. So on the x-axis we'll set it to 0, and we'll adjust the emitters in a moment. Then on the y rotation set that to 0, and the z rotation set that to 0. And we can pretty much leave it where it is now. So really we want to set the rotation to around 90 degrees, right? So let's set it to around 90. Let's set it to 85 degrees rotation here. So just get your camera in roughly this position. We'll click on this one and move it out a little bit, and we want to really get the emitters roughly the same distance from the edge of the camera here, like this. Okay, so we've got the two emitters. Let's just go to File, Save, and really we want to stop them from dropping down. So we want to change the gravity settings first, right? So let's name these correctly. So this will be so I'm just going to double click here and change it to emitter left. It's worth naming these objects because we're going to create quite a few of them, and we're going to call this one emitter right. So now we know exactly which is the left and right. So we'll click on the left one, go to the particle settings, and in the physics, the first thing we'll do is set the Brownian to 5. So when I set it to 5 here, I might as well click on the right one and set that one to 5 as well. So I'm just toggling between the left and right one here. So we'll click back on the left one, and we'll scroll down, and we'll go to the force field settings. We'll go to the field weights here and set the gravity to 0, and we'll click on the right one and set that one to 0 as well. So now the particles will go forwards, right? But they've got some Brownian. The Brownian will give them some random direction, basically, right? But they're not going far enough. So we need to change the lifetime to 150. So change the lifetime to 150 here. Click on the left one and change that one to 150 as well. Now they will last a lot longer. Like this, right? Like this. We want to control them a bit better, so let's control them. So we've got some basically left and right particles here. So we want to set the random life scale all the way to the top here and set it all the way to the top here as well. And what we will do now, here's a little tip for you, right? We'll click on the left emitter, and right now the particles start on frame 1 and end on frame 200, so that they're going to stop emitting around here. But the last particle will emit here and it lasts for 150 frames, so that will take it all the way up to 350. But we want to control it so that it stops at before 250 frames, right? The animation for the particles. So all we'll do is click on this end frame, left click and drag down. And if you watch this red line, it's going to start to decrease. So as I drag down, you'll see this line at the bottom here, this red line. This will tell us when the particle simulation's ended. I'm going to drag across right till it stops roughly just before 250, and it's set at 98.8. So let's set that to 99, and that will be exactly when we'll leave it at 98. So the first frame will be where the first particle emits, and then on frame 98, which is roughly down here somewhere, that's where the last one's going to be emitted. So all the particles will be done emission by this point here, 98. Then the rest of it is just how those particles flow, and that way we can control when the particles end here. So on this frame right here, there'll be no more particles displayed for this left one. So let's apply that to the right one. So we just need to know 98 here. We'll go to the right one and type in the end, 98. So now when we flow through, when we get close to the end, you'll see the particles will disappear. They'll disappear right at the end here, and that's what we want. We want to control, I really want to show you how to control these particles, right? That's the aim of this tutorial. Let's go to File, Save. Now we want to create the particle colors, right? Now here you can really do whatever you want. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here, and we're going to create an icosphere, or actually we use a UV sphere. So we've got a UV sphere here. Let's drag it up to here out of the camera view. Let's drag it up to here somewhere, and we'll click on it and press Shift D to duplicate. Shift and D, then hit the Enter key. Now we've got two particles, right? Or two UV spheres. We'll click on the left one, and we'll go into our render view here. And the first thing we should do is really add a light source. So let's press Shift A, and we will add a sunlight here. Sunlight. So we've got a sunlight here. It's right down here in the middle. We can just drag that up a little bit out of the camera view, but it doesn't really matter, but we'll leave it here. Let's click on this left one, and we'll go to the material. We'll click New Material, and then we'll set this material surface. In fact, what you should do is label these, right? So this is going to be the, let's click on this left one here. It's called Sphere at the moment. Let's call it Particle 1. Particle 1. And the other one, we'll name it to Particle 2. Let's spell that quickly. So we've got Particle 1 and 2. Let's click on the number 1. We've already added the material here. Let's go to the surface and name it here, first of all, Particle 1. Let's name them correctly. Click here, Surface, go to Emission, set it to 5, and we'll leave it white. Then we'll click on Particle 2, and we can just double click here, copy this name, Control C to copy, go to the material, click New Material, paste this into here. The reason we're doing this is when you click on this drop down, you'll know what these particles are called now, right? They'll have a relevant name to them. So this is called Particle 2. We'll go to the emission shader, and we'll set that to 5, and then we'll choose a different color. I'm going to choose like a blue color. You can pick any colors you like, right? It's just an experiment or an example. So we'll click on the render settings here and turn on the bloom so they glow. And we're going to turn on, we'll turn on volumetric lighting at the moment. We'll set the tile size to 4, and we'll set the samples to 90 because we're going to need this later, right? We might as well do it now. Now we've got the two particles and we want to emit them from this left emitter. Let's go to File, Save As, and save it as version 2. We'll click here, that will add a 02 here, and save it. And what we will do is create a collection for these particles first. So let's right click here and create, so we'll click on collection, left click, then right click and say new collection. So it will create this collection and we'll name it particles left, particles left. Click this particle and drag it into that collection, and click the second one and drag it in there as well. So now the particles are located in a collection called particles left. So we're identifying and creating a structure here, right? It's really important because we're going to create a lot of things and we need to have structure to them. So let's click on the left particle emitter here and we'll go to the particle settings, and inside of the render here we will select the halo and select collection here, and then in this collection instance we'll select the left one and we'll turn on random and we'll turn on random scale. So now we'll see colored particles being emitted from the left one, and they're blue and white. Now what we can do is just click on this collection up here, the left one, right click on it and say duplicate collection, and it will make a copy, and it's called particles left 001, and we'll call it particles right. Let's rename it. Now it's called particles right. These particles inside, we can probably leave them as the same name. It doesn't really, well, actually, let's call it particles 3, and the other one we'll call it particles 4. So we've got 3 and 4 now. Let's click on number 3 and then hold down the shift key and click on number 4, and then we can drag those two down because they're sitting in the same location. So these are separate particles that we're going to use for the right side. So what we'll do is click on number 3 and go to the material, and let's just double click here, copy this name, particle 3, double click, press Ctrl C to copy, and then we'll delete this material. We're not deleting the material, we are removing it from this particle. So you see it says particle 1 here. We don't want that material because it's white. We want to create a new material for it. So we'll click on it and just click the minus key. That removes removes that material, not deletes it, removes it. So we'll remove that and create a new one, and we'll name that particle 3. So it's got its own material, and we will go to the emission shader again, set it to 5, and this time we'll pick a different color, something like let's go for red and yellow this time, red. And then we'll click on particle 4, double click, copy, Ctrl C to copy, go to the material, we'll remove that material, and we'll click a new one. We'll paste this here called particle 4. We'll go to the emission shader, set it to 5, and then we'll choose yellow. So now we've got these 4 colors, and we've isolated this, right? This one's called particle right and this one's called particle left. So logic tells us particle right, we'll go to the right emitter and we'll go to the particle settings for that one, and we'll go to the render as collection, and we want to set that to the right particles. We'll pick random and we'll random scale it. Also, let's see, yeah, that should be fine. Now we've got white and blue, red and yellow, left and right separated. So here you can see that, right? So we want to control these particles a bit better. So what we can do is let's minimize these collections, these two here, right? So we've got left and right here, and we're going to create a new collection. So we'll create another new collection here, and this one we're going to call this collection here, we're going to call it emitter left fields. We're going to call it emitter left field. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to move to the viewport, press Shift A, and we're going to insert a force field, which will be a wind force field, wind. So here's a wind force field, and it's pointing upwards, but we want to rotate it so that it's pointing from, we want to push these left particles to the right direction. So we want to rotate this. So let's click on the object data, and we want to rotate on the y-axis. So let's rotate it around 90 degrees. Now it's facing in this direction, and we will grab that. We'll click on the red handle, so make sure you've got the move tool. Let's just grab it and drag it behind this particle emitter, and it's called field here, and we'll name it, we want to call this field wind left. Name it correctly, should I say, and then it will be easier to manage later. So let's double click on this field left emitter left fields, double click, press Ctrl C to copy, go to the collection, create a new collection, and then you'll see that new collection here called collection 4. Double click on it, press Ctrl V to paste, and change the word left, and let's change that to right. We'll change it to right. Then we can click on the, there's a few ways to do this, right? We're going to be a bit, let's say a bit lazy, not lazy, but efficient is the right word. Let's click on the field left wind. We'll go to the viewport, we'll press Shift and D to duplicate it, and we're going to drag it all the way over to the other side. And in here it's called field wind left. We want to rename it to field wind right, and then drag that into the right collection. So we're building these collections for the fields so that we can manage, or we can tell Blender to use these fields on these emitters left and right separately, individually. The problem we have with the right one is the wind is pointing in this direction. We want it to point in the other direction. So all we do is set the Y value to -90. Now the wind, this yellow arrow, is pointing this way, and the left one is pointing in the left direction. So what we can do now is click on the field wind left, and we can go to its settings and set the strength to 1.5, and we'll do the same for the right one. We'll click here and we'll set its strength to 1.5, and we need to tell Blender that the particle emitter is going to be using these collections, right? So we'll click on the left emitter here, the left one, go to its physics setting, or the particle setting should I say, particles, and as we scroll down here you see effector collection, yeah, here, and we'll click on the drop down and we'll select left emitter left fields here, and then we'll go to the right one and we'll select emitter right fields. So in effect what we've done is we've created these fields, and they will change. In fact, let's show you, right? So if we click the play button, we've got these particles being emitted, and the wind is pushing these particles across, right? So if we were to click on the left field wind and go to its physics settings and increase it, you'll see they'll move faster. So now we're able to control the left one and the right one individually. We can control them separately, right? And that was the idea. But we want to leave them roughly the same, so they're moving at the same sort of speed. So we set them both to 1.5. Here 1.5, 1.5. So we're getting kind of roughly what we had in the example animation, something similar. Now what we want to do, let's just go to File, Save. We'll pause this and we'll click on the field emitter left, this left fields. We'll press Shift A and we're going to insert a turbulence. So we've got a turbulence here, and we'll drag, actually we'll leave it in this, yeah, let's see, turbulence, let's drag it behind the left one, and it's called field in here. Really what I think a nice thing Blender could be doing, and it doesn't do it at the moment, is when you add a field it just calls it field. It doesn't call it field turbulence or field anything, it just calls it field. So I think it would be nice when Blender releases its official version, when we add these fields they'll have a more sensible name, because they're all just called field when you add them. So we have to rename them to field TUR for turbulence, and we'll call it left. So let's click on that and we'll press Shift D to duplicate it, drag it to the right hand side over here. I'm not sure if these are positioned correctly, we'll work that out afterwards, but for now this right one it's called field turb left 001 because we duplicated it. We want to drag that into the right emitter and call it field TUR right. Then let's click on the left one, the turbulence on the left. Let's go to its physics settings and we'll set it to something quite high, like 3 for the minute. So the left one's set to 3 for the turbulence. This here, if we click play, Let's go back and click play. You can see there's a difference between the two sides now, right? If we increase this turbulence to like 9, now you can see the difference that it's having. It's having much more effect, right? The turbulence here. So in theory, let's have a little, let's see. Let's pause this. Let's see. I think where this field turbulence is located is going to affect the actual particles, right? So if we're to drag it to the center point, around the center here, go back and click play, it's going to have more of an effect on it because the turbulence is here, positioned here. So I think it will be wise for us to move the left one to the center point as well. We'll move it just off center, right? So there's a gap here. We'll leave one to the side here and we'll click on the right one. This is the right one, turbulence, and we'll drag that roughly to the opposite side here. So they're roughly the same distance apart. And then you can see one of them, the field right turbulence, or the left one, we set to 9.2, which I think is a bit high. So let's set that to around 5. And let's set the right turbulence to 5 as well. And we'll go back, Control S to save. Let's play that out. Now we've got some turbulence to affect these particles. And we can change the wind settings to push them a bit quicker. So we can go to field wind left. And we can set that to like 2. And it'll move a bit quicker. And we can go to the right one, field wind right, and set that one to 2 as well. And now they're going to move a bit quicker and they're going to have some turbulence in them, right? We can see that here. Okay. So let's do one other thing. Let's click on field left here and press Shift A and go to force field, and we're going to insert a vortex. So we've got a vortex here, and let's just play it as it is right now, right? Without doing anything to it. It's in the left side. Really, we should name it first. So field VOR. And then left, right? So only the left one has got a field vortex. Let's increase its, let's see, where is it? Vortex here. Let's increase it to 2, so we'll give it a bit more power, and we'll click play. Now you can see we can actually manipulate the particles really separately now, right? So we've got one that is using this vortex and the particles are spinning around it, and this right one is completely different. It doesn't have a vortex. Now you can really have real control over the emitters, and it might not be 2. You could have one at the side here, one at the top and one at the bottom, and you can create these collections to control the particles individually rather than just having one setting that affects all of the particles. So this vortex is really rotated in the wrong direction. I want to rotate it. Let's just go back so we can see it a bit clearer. So I want to rotate it so that it's horizontal, right? So let's go to the field vortex. Let's go to its settings, and on the y-axis I want to rotate it this direction 90 degrees, and then we can see what effect that has. Now the particles will almost like rotate around like this, right? And its power was set to 2, so the higher you put the power, the more rotation you're going to get out of it. You can see they're rotating quite heavily now, right, the particles. So let's set this down to something like, I think around 1. I think 1 setting is pretty good. I want quite a subtle sort of effect to it. I don't want it to be too powerful. And really we want the right one. Now this is your choice now, right? This is where you have a lot of choice. You don't have to have the left and right one the same. Let's just save this quickly. Let's go to our world settings, click on the color, and let's set it to black. Now we can see things a bit clearer. And what would be nice is, let's just pause this. Let's move this vortex. So let's click on the vortex field left, and let's drag it closer to here. And let's go back and play. And you'll see it will have a different effect to the particles depending on where the vortex is positioned. We want to duplicate this and make one for the right side. So it's already selected, field vortex left. We'll press Shift D to duplicate it, and we're going to drag this one roughly to the same location on the right side, but we want to rotate it and drag it. So we want to take the field vortex left here and drag it into the right fields collection here, and let's rename it to right. Let's press Control S to save, and now we want to rotate this one. So let's rotate this one minus 90. Minus 90. And we'll go back and we'll click play. Now we've got two vortexes controlling these particles, giving them some sort of spin trajectory, right? And what you can do is also, what I found is you could drag them to different locations. So you can move this right one, and then we could rotate it as well on the, let's see, on the z-axis. And now you can start to affect how these particles flow, and we can rotate at an angle as well. So you can play around with the rotation of the vortex, and these particles will flow differently based on that vortex, right? And we can increase its power. Now you can see the effect it can really have on the particles. You can have quite a lot of dramatic effect. And you can just grab it and drag it to a different location up here in the corner. Now you can see what sort of difference you get out of it, right? You see it's like a corkscrew sort of into that direction. You can move it to over here. You can have a real dramatic effect to the particles. It's quite powerful, so we can bring down its power to like 1 point, let's say even 0.6, and now these particles won't be affected as much, but they'll get time to flow across the screen more. So let's we'll leave this here. I kind of like the way that this is made. And the idea here was to show you that we can move these objects, these particle emitters, and we can move the not the emitters themselves, but these what we're calling these fields. We can move them into different locations, and we can give them all different strengths and different power. So we can go on the field wind left, and it's set to 2. We can increase that one, so we can speed that one up, and it will move a bit quicker. And then we can like mix the particles together, and the trajectory is different now. So we can go into the right vortex, and in the let's see, the wind for the right one, we can increase that as well. And sometimes you have to wait for Blender to loop back around to see the effect of what it's having. Now you can see the particles are moving in different trajectories, right? Different directions based on the settings that we put in here. And that's for you to go and experiment. Go and experiment with some of the other particle settings. Really, what I would probably do to tidy this up is go to the right vortex. Let's go to its settings, and let's set the Z rotation to 0. We'll set the Y rotation to 0 as well. The Y actually will set it to minus 90. So it's facing back that way. Well, let's pause this a second. Pause it. We'll drag this back to where it was before. So I roughly want them both to be the same sort of animation on each side. This one's set to 1.5, I think. Let's check. On the left one was set to 5 points. That's the wind. The vortex was set to 1. So let's go to the right field vortex, set that to 1 again. Then let's just check. The turbulence is 5. The turbulence here is 5. The vortex on the left is 1. The vortex on the right is 1 here. And then the wind is 4.3. And the wind on the left one is 5.1. So let's set that to 4.3. So now they should be pretty equal. They should kind of do something very similar. Here you go. I think the wind is too strong here anyway, so let's set that back down to like 2. Yeah, I think that's better. 2 here, and then on the right one we'll set that back to 2 as well. So the last thing I want to show you is that volumetric lighting, because in the example I showed you some volumetric lighting that was in the background. So let's add that. Really what I would probably do here is click on this click on these, hold down the shift key, click on this one, click this one, and this one, select all of them and just drag them out, because you can see they're actually emitting some light here. So let's just drag them out of the camera view so they don't affect the actual animation in here in any way. And we will press number 3 on our keyboard. Number 3 will take us into the right orthographic. It's really hard to, let's go into the solid view, and solid view allows us to see the camera. The camera is right here. You can see the camera here. So we want our lighting to be behind. So let's press Shift A, and we're going to insert a light spotlight. So here's the spotlight. Let's drag it back and we're going to rotate it. So let's go to the tools here and we want to rotate it on the x-axis minus 90. So let's set it to minus 90. Now this light source is facing the camera. We'll press Ctrl S to save, and then we want to set the let's see, we want to set the power to this. So let's set it to around 1000, and we'll change the color. So we had, what colors did we have in this? We had like a, let's set it to, let's try red for now. We can change that quite easily, right? So it's a red color light source. Let's go back to the render view. Let's press 0, and we will go to the shading here. Let's go to the world view. We'll press 0 to see the camera view. We'll go into the render view, and I'm just going to zoom in here for you. We'll press Shift A and go to the shader and add a volume scatter. And we really want to set the strength here, right? So let's go to the volume, set this to here, connect this to here, to the volume. We'll set the density to 0.015, and we'll set the option here to 0.964. Now we've got that red light in the background, and in my example what I did, if I remember correctly, is I let's see, I press really we want this light source to be a bit lower, right? We want it to be almost like in the center here, so let's drag it down a little bit to the center of our camera around here. And then I'm going to press Shift A and insert a UV sphere. And then I'm going to go to the modifier, add a modifier and set it to wireframe. And then I'll go to the material, click on new material, and I'm going to set it to translucent here. No, transparent here. Transparent. And then let's see, let's turn off our overlays. In fact, what we'll do is we'll right click, let's press number 3. Number 3 will take us into the really what we want to do. Let's see, this camera, this light source, we want to drag it up. Let's drag it up a bit so that's in line with these objects. And in here we've got the, let's find the, let's see, where did it go? Here the sphere got put into this collection, the left collection here, the sphere, that was the one that we just created. So we want to drag that out to the main collection up here. So we've got our sphere here, and then our spotlight is also in the left emitter collection. We don't want it there, we want it into the main collection at the top. So we've got our camera, our emitters and everything in here. And then this sphere, we want to drag it so that it's sitting around this this light source, right? Then press 0, and then all we'll do is turn off our overlays, and let's move the camera a little bit. So let's click on the camera. Let's go to the camera settings and let's rotate the camera a little bit. Let's rotate it to around 90 degrees, and then on the Z-axis let's bring it down. So we're looking at the light source, and let's just move through the timeline quickly. Yeah, something like this. Let's go to save, and then what you can do is click on the sphere and you can just move the sphere. Let's just move it. And as you move it on the X and the Y and the Z axis, you can affect that volumetric lighting because it's kind of surrounding the object. So if you move it forward, you'll start to see the sphere here. So you want to move it where you can't really see it, or just about see it, to somewhere like here. I think here would be good. Something like that, then you get some nice sort of lighting effect here, right? With this volumetric lighting. Let's change, let's see, let's move through the timeline a little bit. And I don't really like that red color, so we can go to the spotlight, go to this, the object data, and we can change that color. Maybe we'll change it to like let's go for like a yellow sort of color. yellow goldy sort of color, like that. So if you wanted to render this animation out, the first thing you need to do is go to the left emitter, go to File, Save, and then go to the particle settings, move up to here, go to the cache, and then click Bake All Dynamics. That will bake the particles. In theory, you should go to the right emitter as well and click Bake All Dynamics, and then go back and click Play. Now you can see the particles being emitted. You can play around with the volumetric lighting as well, and you can increase now you can go and experiment. This is your time to go and experiment. So go and play around with the fields. You can change the pace of these particles by simply changing the field, the wind settings, right? So you've got the wind settings and the particle settings, or the physics settings for the wind, and then you can just change the strength here, and you can increase or decrease how those particles flow. Now, one thing to note, if let's say if we click on the field wind left, right, the wind for the left object, and we change it to something crazy like 23, right, that's really, really high. Before it was set to like 1 or something, 1.5, and we go back and we click play, and you'll see the particles are not moving any faster. It's because you've baked them. You've told Blender to memorize what the current settings were at that point in time when you baked them. So what you need to do is go to the left emitter. You can click on it or click on the left emitter here, go to its physics settings or the particle settings, delete the bake, and then you can, in theory, we should be able to play it now, right? Now we have to rebake it. So we click bake, click play, and now you can see they're moving much, much quicker, right? Because we set the field wind here left to 8 or -8, we set it to. What do we set it to? That's the location. Let's go to field wind settings. We set it to 23. So now you can start to play around with the settings, but you have to delete the bake, right? So let's set it back to what it was. It was field wind. The right one was 2, so let's set the left one back to 2. And then go to the left emitter, go to the particle settings, delete the bake. Let's just go back. Let's go File, Save, Play. So it's still playing fast. So let's say you need to clear the current cache to bake, right? So if you clear this and go back and play, let's see, delete bake. I want to try and get those particles. Let's go to the field wind left. It's set to 2, and the right one for the wind is also set to 2. So in the left emitter here underneath the bake settings, let's click delete all bakes, clear current cache, File, Save. Let's click update to all frames. Let's see if that will fix it. Let's go back here. Okay, so to see that effect, we've changed the wind settings here, right? We're gonna have to click Bake All Dynamics, and it should in theory slow down. It's still fast, right? So we're doing something wrong here. Let's see, field left. The wind is set to 2, and then the right one is also set to 2. Did we change something else? Let's see, 5, 1, 2. Left emitter, delete the bake, okay, delete the bake, bake all dynamics. Now it's back. You can't click current to cache because that will rebake what was there before. So you've got to delete the bake and rebake it one more time. So when you change these settings in here, you have to remove the bake, right? And then rebake it so that Blender can work out the particle trajectories again. So I'll leave you to go and experiment. This was something that I found quite interesting, so I thought I'd share that with you, this knowledge. And in this sequence here you could have had some sort of logo or text or something there and the particles flowing over it. So I'll leave you to go and experiment. If you want to render this animation out, simply go to the output settings here. We'll set it to 30 frames a second and then click on the drop down here and select it AVI JPEG, and then click on the folder, go to the folder on your desktop, click accept, and then just press Ctrl and F12, and Blender will take each frame and convert it into a video animation, and then you can use that on your YouTube channel or use that wherever you want. Let's wait a few frames, maybe we'll see some particles coming in. Let's just make sure that we see some particles. We should see them by now. So for some reason we don't see any particles, right, in our video sequence. We're on frame 14, so we should see some by now. Oh, here they are, look, they're coming through now. It takes a few frames for them to start to show. That's because we had a gap, remember? Although the particles start to emit on frame 1, there was a gap, the emitter, there was a little gap on the where is it? Let's just show you rather than telling you. There was this gap here, so the first few frames you won't see anything because the particles need to move that distance into the camera view before you'll see them, right? So I'm going to leave this to render out. I'll leave you to render out your own animation and then you can go and check that out yourself. We'll minimize this. We'll minimize this. That's the end of this Blender particles tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you on the next DCP web tutorial.